In this video, I'm going to attempt to try to draw a bunch of different styles of hair. So if you would like to skip around this video and just kind of scroll through and see if you find something that might be helpful to you, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to watch the entire thing. One thing hair has a tendency to do, if it's kind of fine hair, is to clump together and form groupings of hairs. So this kind of portrait where they're all just running separate, like a porcupine, is a little bit not as real looking to many humans as one where the hair kind of goes into shapes more, follows each other and clumps together in this way. Okay, so this is kind of what we think of first of all, is just drawing all these individual hairs, but rather think about them as filling in shapes. And I think you'll have a lot more success, and it's much easier to do it this way. So let's just start off with some hair. I'm going to think about the way it's laying down. The gravity is going this way, so the hair is wanting to fall down to the ground, and it's kind of growing out of the scalp and then immediately coming down towards the shoulders. And then you would have ears here. Maybe your ears are covered if your hair's long, and then the shoulders there and there. If the hair is behind the shoulders, it's pretty easy to draw this. But if the hair is in front of the shoulders, you're going to have to think about, well, how far does that hair go down the portrait, and how is it relating to the clothes you're wearing and the chin and all of this. This hair right now is very much just empty shapes. This is, think of it also like a sheet. If you're wearing a towel on your head or something, the brightest part of that towel will be the top where the light can hit it. The darkest part of the towel will be underneath the towel. Like in this neck area, there's going to be probably a lot of shadow in there and in there. So you might want to fill that out first. And then you got to think about what else is shaded. If you look at your drawing, and there are no darker areas than others, go ahead and start maybe pushing a little bit more with the pencil. And then the rest, if you want to just color in very, very lightly, but also in the direction of the hair is going down, so I'm going to kind of color this in this way too to give me a little bit more of that texture. And then with the blender, you can kind of fill in a lot of this. It'll get darker too when you do this, and remove all of those white spaces. So instead of black or pencil and the white paper, we've got that dark pencil in addition to this kind of gray color there. And your hair might not have many reflections, like this is kind of very flat looking. There's a few shadows, but if you wanted then to use your eraser to use as a drawing tool to create highlights in the hair, it'll give it a little bit more of a three-dimensional appearance. And these can follow all the way down throughout the hair. And again, think about the towel analogy where it's parts are being covered and parts are being exposed to the light. So you might have some areas that are much brighter than others, and then some areas that are much darker than others. And you also kind of need to avoid a little bit more of the stripy appearance where it's like black and white. Don't get it too much different from the rest of it, but at the same time you don't want it all to just kind of blend in either. So that's kind of a long sort of hairstyle. What if we had a short style of hair? We might have a little bit easier time with that because there's less of it to worry about. So I'm going to think about where the forehead is and the shape of that, and then how much bigger is the hair compared to your actual head. Because hair will be growing out of your scalp. It's going to give it a little bit wider appearance there. So your hair might just be simply as just basic as like a hat almost. And if you shade this in, that could be perfectly acceptable. If you wanted a little bit more texture, if you have some bangs coming down, you might have some of that. You might have a little bit of texture on the side. You might have your hair sticking up here and there. And then also, if you wanted to look for the highest light of the picture, the highlights of your hair, study that. And if you see some highlights in your photograph, you might want to use your eraser again and brighten some of those areas up a little bit so it's not so flat looking. Let's try another style. So, got this head. Let's do something a little bit more wavy, perhaps. So we've got ears here, the neck's coming down here. Let's go with, actually, let's do a parted hairstyle. So the hair is growing out of the scalp here, and then maybe it's crossing over the forehead a little bit. Think about the top, and then where is it leading towards? If this is longer hair, how much longer is it towards your shoulders? Is it higher than your shoulders? Is it going clear to the bottom of the photograph or the portrait? And then I like to think about like the letter S. Letter S shapes, these kind of waves you might see in your hairstyle if you've got wavy hair like this. So I'm kind of exaggerating the lines here a little bit, but once we get some shading in there and we kind of color a little bit of this in, again kind of in the direction of the actual hair, it may not look as strange. I'm going to get it really dark, again in that space between the neck and underneath there where the hair is creating a big shadow. And if the hair is in front of the ears, you might need to erase. If the hair is kind of a little bit of both, maybe the ears just poking out a little bit, that's kind of fun too. And then I'm going to use my blender to shade this in, give it one solid shape as opposed to all those kind of porcupine spines. You don't want to have every hair an individual line, but more a collection of shapes. And then back in with the eraser to add some highlights. And if you want it to be even extra shiny, you might want to go and darken right next to those highlights to kind of give it even more contrast, more light to dark variation. And again, think about how long is the hair compared to the shoulders. And then the eyebrows would be here. We got the eyes, nose, mouth. And then another thing about how dark this is, it looks a little bit flat on that neck, so usually under the chin there's going to be some shade as well. And that'll make the chin appear like it's coming forward out from the neck and a little bit more three-dimensional. If you've got braids, those are pretty interesting to create because they've got a really interesting pattern. If you've got a single braid, one way to draw that thing is to create like a zigzag pattern like this down through the center of the braid. And then what happens is as this zigzag goes this way, extend it a little bit, and then extend this one a little bit, and extend this one a little bit, each one going kind of back on itself. And that'll be the center of the braid, and then all you'll need to do is create these round edges here on the outside of that shape. And then this will be the same on this side. And then what you're going to do is get your pencil in there and add shading down where the braid gets tucked under this one and gets coming out of that top one from there. And then this way I'm going to go this direction, and then this direction, and then this direction, and this direction. And I'm just going to add a lot of pencil here that I'm going to use the blender with in a little bit to create the shadows. And it's going to appear much more three-dimensional when we're done here. So, and if you also see, you follow along, it should look like an S. And if this one seems it's a little bit not connected to the S shape, you might need to readjust that a little bit. It should be a fluid S shapes woven together. That's how you know if it's done correctly. So I am fixing some of my my mistakes there. Now I'm going to take my blender here, and each section of this, I'm going to shade the tops and the bottoms, and leave a little space in the center, lighter, for kind of a shiny highlight of the hair. And as you blend it, you also want to kind of blend it again in the direction that these hairs would be growing in. So it's easier to understand. Gives you some texture of the hair without actually drawing every single hair. So that looks a little bit more shiny, and if you wanted to make it less shiny, you just fill in that highlight a little bit. And if you accidentally over shaded and you want that shine to come back again, it's just easy to draw some of those textures in there in the center of that. And there's kind of a simple braid design. Also, hairs can also be a little bit just a twist, twisty shapes. They're not really braided, but they might just have that kind of rope appearance. So it's a similar thing, except it's a little bit less complicated to draw that. Dark, dark, dark. And as you shade, try not to use a very, very sharp point. If you can help it, if you're pushing hard, that may gouge the paper or make it so that it's not smudgeable. It might get too embedded in the paper and not be able to like erase out if you needed to. So there's a kind of twisted design. And then you might just have wavy hair like this. Think about where it's overlapping, going underneath, what's going to be shaded, and what's lit up. And your best teacher for this would be your resource or your photograph, because that's going to show you what's what. Just making the stuff up is much harder than if you had a reference to look at. And you can see what's light and what's dark, and the shapes that it makes. So this shows a little bit of like a crossing over of long hair. Not really braided, not really twisted, but a little bit of both. And short hairstyles, it's kind of hard to get a lot of this variation, but you still might have some directions to think about. If your hair is up, for example, maybe it's you get the forehead here, you maybe have a direction where the hair is coming up and then over, flopping down that way and that way. You can shade this in. And then add some highlights as the hair is coming up and over. And then you may want to go back in there again and even add some extra shadows if you needed more contrast to it. And another resource you've got available to you is just if you Googled a search, say, how to draw hair, you'll get millions of different tutorials as well, things that I didn't talk about here, and even just some still images of hair drawings that might be useful to you. So I hope you have some luck with this, and if you have any questions, just please let me know. Thank you.